My father's 75th birthday party was supposed to be a celebration. We'd rented out his favorite Italian restaurant, invited 40 family members and close friends, and I'd spent weeks planning every detail. Dad loved celebrations. He always said life was too short not to mark the important moments. What I didn't plan for was my sister Vanessa turning it into her own personal victory lap. We were halfway through dinner, Dad laughing at my uncle's terrible jokes when Vanessa stood up. She was wearing red, bold, attention-grabbing red, and she tapped her wine glass with a fork until the room went quiet. "I have an announcement," she said, her voice carrying across the restaurant. "Actually, Dad and I have an announcement." Dad looked confused. I felt my stomach tighten. Vanessa pulled folded papers from her designer purse and held them up. "Yesterday, Dad and I went to see his lawyer, and he made some important decisions about his future and ours." "Vanessa," I started, but she talked over me. "Dad signed a new will. After a lot of discussion about who's really been there for him, who really cares about his legacy, he decided that everything should go to me." She smiled triumphantly. "The house, the business, his investments, all of it. I'll be taking over Morrison Manufacturing and I'll be managing the estate." The room erupted. Cousin Diane started crying. My brother Marcus jumped to his feet. "That's insane. Dad, you didn't." "This is ridiculous," my Aunt Carol shouted. "Edward, tell her this isn't true." But Dad just sat there, looking bewildered and small. His hands trembled slightly as he reached for his water glass. "Dad?" I asked quietly, leaning toward him. "Did you sign something yesterday?" I think so." His voice was uncertain. "Vanessa said it was important. Papers about the business. She said you agreed, Lauren. She said everyone agreed." My heart sank. I looked at Vanessa, who avoided my eyes. "Dad," I said gently, "I never agreed to anything. Vanessa didn't discuss this with any of us." "Yes, I did." Vanessa's voice rose defensively. "I told you weeks ago that Dad needed to update his estate planning. You said he needed to review his documents," I corrected, "not that he was signing everything over to you exclusively." The restaurant had gone quiet except for my family's shocked voices overlapping. Marcus was demanding to see the papers. My uncle was on his phone, presumably calling a lawyer. Aunt Carol was crying openly. I pulled out my phone and sent a text. She did it. "Brought the papers to the party. Please come now." Then I looked at my sister. "Vanessa, when exactly did you take Dad to the lawyer?" "Yesterday, like I said, 2 o'clock appointment." "And where was I?" "How should I know? You're always busy with your perfect career." "I was at the hospital," I said calmly. "At Dad's neurology appointment. The one I told you about 3 weeks ago. The one you said you couldn't attend because of work." Vanessa's face flickered with something. Guilt? Fear? "I forgot about that appointment." "No, you didn't. You deliberately scheduled the lawyer meeting while Dad was supposed to be at a medical appointment. An appointment that would have shown you something very important." "What are you talking about?" But her voice had lost its confidence. The restaurant door opened. Dr. Patricia Chen, Dad's neurologist, walked in carrying a file folder. Behind her was Samuel Morrison, Dad's actual lawyer, not whatever notary Vanessa had found. "Dr. Chen," I said, standing, "thank you for coming. I know this is highly unusual." "Given the circumstances, I thought it was necessary," she replied, her expression serious. She looked at Dad with concern. "Edward, how are you feeling?" "Confused," Dad admitted. "Lauren, why is Dr. Chen here? Am I supposed to be at the hospital?" "No, Dad. But I asked Dr. Chen to come because I think everyone needs to understand what's been happening with your health." Vanessa's face had gone pale. "This is a private family matter." "Which involves Dad's medical capacity," Dr. Chen interrupted firmly. "Something I take very seriously." She turned to address the room. "I'm Dr. Patricia Chen, Edward Morrison's neurologist. I've been treating him for the past 8 months." The room went completely silent. "Edward was diagnosed with early-stage Alzheimer's disease in January," Dr. Chen continued. "The progression has been moderate but concerning. We've documented increasing memory issues, confusion about recent events, and periods of disorientation." "No," Vanessa whispered. "That's not. He's fine. He's completely fine. He has good days and bad days," Dr. Chen said. "But legally, he's been deemed incapable of making major financial decisions without a medical evaluation confirming his capacity at the time of signing. That evaluation should have been done by his primary physician or myself." She looked directly at Vanessa. When did you say Edward signed these documents? Yesterday, Vanessa said weakly, at 2 p.m. That's interesting, Samuel Morrison, the lawyer, spoke up, because I received no request to prepare new estate documents for Mr. Morrison. I've been his attorney for 30 years, and he's never made major changes without consulting me first. He held out his hand. May I see those documents? Vanessa clutched the papers tighter. They're private. If they're legitimate, they're not private, Samuel said firmly. They're legal documents that would supersede the estate plan I helped Edward create. I have every right to review them. Marcus stepped forward and took the papers from Vanessa's hand. She didn't resist, just stood there, looking smaller by the second. Samuel reviewed the documents, his frown deepening. This was prepared by Davidson Legal Services. They're not estate attorneys. They are a budget notary service that handles basic documents. He looked up. These papers claim Edward Morrison signed over power of attorney, updated his will, and transferred business ownership all in one appointment. That's legal, isn't it? Vanessa asked desperately. It's suspicious, Samuel replied, especially given what Dr. Chen just shared about Edward's condition. He turned to Dr. Chen. Was Edward evaluated for mental capacity yesterday? No. He was supposed to be with me at the hospital yesterday at 2 p.m. for his quarterly assessment. But someone canceled the appointment. Dr. Chen pulled out her phone. The cancellation came from a number registered to Vanessa Morrison. Every eye in the room turned to Vanessa. I rescheduled it, she stammered. Dad said he had a conflict. Dad didn't know he had an appointment, I said quietly. I've been managing his medical calendar for 6 months because he can't keep track anymore. You went into his phone and canceled it yourself, didn't you? Tears were streaming down Vanessa's face now. You don't understand. I needed this. The business is worth millions, and you were just going to split everything equally, like we're all equally important. We are all equally important, Marcus said, his voice shaking with anger. He's our father, Vanessa, not your personal ATM. I've done everything for him, Vanessa shouted. I visit him every week. I call him every day. You visit him once a month, I corrected. And you call him when you want something. I'm the one who takes him to every doctor's appointment. I'm the one who sits with him when he's confused and scared. I'm the one who holds his hand when he can't remember where he is. Because you're trying to control him, Vanessa accused. Because he has Alzheimer's, I said, my voice breaking. Because our father is sick, and instead of helping him, you exploited his confusion to steal his estate. Dr. Chen stepped forward. Mr. Morrison, I need to ask you some questions. Is that all right? Dad nodded, looking frightened and confused. What day is today? Dad hesitated. Friday? It's Sunday, Dr. Chen said gently. Do you remember where you were yesterday afternoon? Was I home? Or was that Tuesday? Dad's eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry, I can't remember. Do you remember signing legal documents yesterday? Documents? Dad looked at Vanessa. Vanessa said. She said it was important. She said Lauren knew about it. She said I had to sign quickly because... He trailed off, confused. I don't remember why. Dr. Chen turned to Samuel. In my professional medical opinion, Edward Morrison lacks the mental capacity to execute major legal documents without a thorough evaluation. Any documents signed in the past 6 months without medical clearance should be considered questionable at best, void at worst. Samuel nodded grimly. I'll be filing a motion tomorrow to have these documents declared invalid, and I'll be recommending that the State Bar investigate Davidson Legal Services for taking advantage of a vulnerable adult. Vanessa sank into her chair, sobbing. I didn't mean, I thought. You thought you could trick a sick old man into signing away his estate, Aunt Carol said coldly. At his birthday party, no less. In front of his whole family. I think we should end this dinner, I said quietly. Dad, let's get you home. Dad nodded gratefully. He looked exhausted and overwhelmed. As I helped him stand, he gripped my hand tightly. Lauren, did I do something wrong? Everyone's upset. No, Dad, I said, fighting back tears. You didn't do anything wrong. Everything's going to be okay. The legal fallout took 3 months. The documents Vanessa had Dad sign were invalidated, not just because of his Alzheimer's diagnosis, but because the lawyer she used wasn't even licensed to practice estate law in our state. He was a notary who'd been advertising cheap legal services online, and he lost his notary license permanently. Dad's original will stood. Everything divided equally among his 3 children, with the business going to Marcus, who'd actually worked there for 20 years. The house would be sold and the proceeds split. His investments would fund a trust for his care and eventually pass to us equally. Vanessa tried to fight it. She hired a real lawyer who quickly advised her to drop the case after seeing the medical evidence and the circumstances. She canceled Dad's medical appointments, taking him to a questionable notary, and then publicly announced her theft at a birthday party full of witnesses. Her lawyer told her she was lucky we weren't pressing charges for elder abuse. Marcus and I decided not to pursue criminal charges. It wasn't mercy, it was exhaustion. We had enough to deal with managing Dad's declining health without adding a court case to the mix. Vanessa sent a letter 6 weeks after the birthday dinner. It was supposedly an apology, but it was really just excuses. She talked about financial stress, about feeling unappreciated, about how seeing Marcus and me get credit for taking care of Dad had made her feel inadequate. She never actually said, "I'm sorry for trying to steal from my sick father." I didn't respond, neither did Marcus. Dad's decline continued over the next 18 months. There were good days when he remembered us clearly and bad days when he thought I was my mother. We moved him into a memory care facility when it became unsafe for him to live alone. He'd left the stove on twice and wandered out of the house in his pajamas at 3 a.m. Marcus and I visited 3 times a week. Aunt Carol came every Sunday. Other family members rotated through regularly. Vanessa didn't come at all for the first 6 months. Then she started showing up occasionally, always when she knew I wouldn't be there, always bringing expensive gifts Dad didn't need or understand. The staff told me she'd spend 10 minutes with him, take photos, and leave. One day, about 2 years after the birthday party incident, I arrived at the facility to find Vanessa sitting with Dad. He was having a good day, alert, conversational, almost like his old self. "Lauren," he said warmly when he saw me, "you just missed it." Vanessa was showing me pictures of her new house. Very nice. I looked at Vanessa. She at least had the grace to look ashamed. "Could I talk to you outside?" I asked her. We went to the courtyard. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. "I know you hate me," Vanessa finally said. "I don't hate you," I replied honestly. "I'm just sad about what you did, about what you chose." I was desperate. "Stop." I held up my hand. "Don't explain it again. I've heard all the explanations, and none of them justify trying to steal from your own father while he was losing his mind." Vanessa's eyes filled with tears. I know it was wrong. I wanted to matter, to be important." "You were important," I said quietly. "You were his daughter. That was enough. That should have been enough. I ruined everything, didn't I?" "You made a choice that had consequences. Marcus and I aren't pressing charges, but we also aren't forgetting what you did. Dad might not remember. That's the cruel blessing of Alzheimer's, but we do. Will you ever forgive me?" I thought about it honestly. I don't know. Maybe eventually. But forgiveness doesn't mean trust, Vanessa. You can visit Dad. You can come to family events, but you'll never have access to his finances or medical decisions again. That trust is gone. She nodded, crying quietly. I understand. I started to walk away, then turned back. "Vanessa? If you really want to matter, stop showing up for 10 minutes with expensive gifts. Stay for an hour. Hold his hand. Listen to the same stories he tells over and over. That's what matters. That's what he needs." "Okay," she whispered. "I'll try." Dad passed away 6 months later, peacefully in his sleep. The Alzheimer's had progressed to the point where he no longer recognized any of us. The doctors said it was a blessing, that he wasn't suffering anymore, wasn't trapped in the confusion. At his funeral, Vanessa sat in the back. She didn't make any announcements or create any scenes. She just cried quietly and left before the reception. The estate was divided exactly as Dad's original will specified, an equal 3-way split. No drama, no fights, no courtroom battles. Marcus used his share to expand Morrison Manufacturing. I used mine to fund Alzheimer's research and to set up a scholarship in Dad's name. I don't know what Vanessa did with hers. We don't talk. Sometimes I think about that birthday party, about how Vanessa stood up in that red dress, waving papers triumphantly, convinced she'd won something. How she planned so carefully to trick our sick father, to steal from her siblings, to take everything. And how quickly it all fell apart when faced with the truth. Dr. Chen told me later that she'd been documenting Dad's decline specifically because she had concerns about family members taking advantage. She'd seen it before: siblings fighting over estates, vulnerable adults being manipulated, families destroyed by greed. Your father was lucky to have you, she said. You protected him even when it cost you family relationships. But I wasn't protecting Dad from Vanessa just because it was right, though it was. I was protecting him because he'd spent his whole life building something for all his children, and I couldn't let one person's desperation destroy that legacy. Dad used to say that character is what you do when no one's watching, but I learned it's also what you do when everyone's watching. When your sister is standing at a birthday party announcing her theft, when your family is crying and begging, when the easy thing would be to stay quiet and avoid conflict. Vanessa thought she could exploit Dad's illness for personal gain. She thought no one would notice or that no one would care enough to fight. She was wrong. And that birthday party, which should have been a celebration, instead became the moment her plan fell apart, because some of us cared more about protecting our father than about keeping the peace. That's not something I'm ashamed of. That's something I'm proud of.